Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Paramita and I heartily welcome you to my channel Paramita PM. If you are new to my channel, then I would request you to go through the content of my channel, look at the videos, and if you really find those videos helpful and if they really heighten your interest, then do like it, share it, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel. And most importantly, please turn on the notification bell button so that you get notified whenever I upload any new videos on my channel. So now, without any further ado, let's get into the lecture. In this audio lecture, we shall discuss the significance of chapter 4 of Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. In the previous chapter, we found that the narrator provided us with the fictional historical example of Judith Shakespeare, where she is depicted as as someone who is equally gifted like Shakespeare, but her genius got stifled because of sexist circumstances. And here in this chapter, we shall see that the narrator would discuss true historical examples of female rights, something which she did not talk about in chapter 1. So first of all, she begins to speak about she begins to speak about an incandescent mind, a mind which is free of obstacles, and she says that how women had personal grudges or grievances against men that ruined their incandescence. But then that genius, which got ruined in the Elizabethan writers on account of their personal grudge, anger, grievance against men, that is more properly expressed by the 19th century women writers, begins to tell us how if any aristocratic woman during the Elizabethan period wrote, her fear of the world and the immense hatred, grudge, resentment that she had for men simply destroyed her writing, because it did not allow her to have that incandescent mind which the narrator believes is required to create fiction. And then the narrator cites the instance of the noble Lady Winchelsea, whose poetry got stifled due to her fear as well as I said, her hatred for men. So it is the narrator's own belief that these negative emotions actually hinder creativity. These negative emotions, they impede one's creativity, and so what a woman writer has to do, what she is required to do is that she has to overcome these emotions in order to write brilliantly. And then the narrator also comes up with the instances of several women who could have excelled in their creative work, but as I said, their personal grievances destroyed their creativity, destroyed their work. Here she is Margaret of Newcastle, who wrote first. She even talks about Dorothy Osborne, who wrote only letters and not just poetry. Dorothy Osborne, like Duchess Margaret, was talented too, but then the kind of letters that she wrote, those letters betrayed her insecurity over her writing. And next, the narrator argues that she talks about Afrabain. She chooses Afrabain to show how her financial independence made her victorious over difficult circumstances. In fact, it was after her husband's death that she was compelled to earn her own livelihood. The first woman who paved a path for the future female writers who could earn by writing, and she stood out as a self-sufficient example. She is the first female writer to have freedom of the mind. Now, as far as women were concerned, they were prevented from pursuing their creative talent. Why? In order to retain their chastity. But we can say that innumerable 18th century class female writers are actually indebted to Afrabain for her development as a woman who earned money from writing. So once women become financially independent, it would certainly lessen. So this is what the narrator feels, that if a woman becomes financially independent, it certainly lessens the scorn or disdain against women's writing. So while talking about the different women, these women writers could have excelled in their creative work, but it is their personal grievance that did not allow them to excel. It is their personal grudge against men that is their personal grievances which they suffered from, which did not allow them to become great poets. And while talking about Afrabain, she says that Afrabain is the first woman who marked a turning point because she showed women the path to earning from their writing. As far as I said, women were concerned during this period, like 18th century, during 18th century, women were simply not allowed to write. Even their parents, rejected their plans. Why? Just to maintain their daughters' chastity. Now the narrator is in a kind of confusion regarding why the wealth of women's writing in the 19th century offers almost exclusively novels, because women had actually originally they began with poetry. So this question comes to the mind of the narrator. So she questions as to why the 19th century women writers are only given to writing novels when they had actually started with poetry. And then major female novelists of the 19th century: Emily Bronte, Charlotte Bronte, George Eliot, and Jane Austen. And she tries to figure out she tries to figure out what these four women novelists had in common apart from being childless. So she finds out that although women began with writing poetry, but later on in the 19th century they were only given to writing novels. And now, while talking about these four great novelists of the time, she says that as far as these four novelists are concerned, they did not have enough privacy, but still, some unknown force compelled them to write novels. So she questions whether their writing novel has something to do with their belonging to the middle class family, because they did not have enough privacy. And it was like in the early 19th century, people used to have only it was not even possible for them to write novels because it requires much attention, much concentration is needed. Like here we come across a line in the text: as Miss Nightingale was so vehemently to complain, women never have an half hour that they can call their own. She was always interrupted. So here the narrator says, so it would have been in fact easier for women to write prose and fiction there. than to write poetry or a play. So all of them, these four novelists, they belong to the middle class family where they were not supposed to have enough privacy. So in that state, they could have only fiction, because for writing poetry or drama, it always requires more concentration. Because according to the narrator here, she means to say that as if less concentration is required for writing novels. Stance of Jane Austen here, that as far as Jane Austen was concerned, she did not have a separate room of her own where she could study, where she could write. In fact, she had to cover her manuscripts, hide her manuscripts with a piece of blotting paper. And so whatever she wrote, everything she had to do while being in the general sitting room, which was subject to all kinds of disturbances and interruptions. Here again, the narrator points out that the 19th century middle class women were trained in the art of social observation, which means that they had to observe these several aspects related to social life. They had to, because they had to observe characters, and they were in the process of analyzing emotions. They could also see relationships before their eyes. And so as a result of this, when the middle class woman took to writing, when she started writing, so she wrote novels. Because the novel became the most for their talents. Here she also draws a comparison between Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte. So here she says that although Jane Austen did not have privacy of a room, okay, but her work did not suffer from her lack of privacy, stating that Austen's work and did not reflect her fear or hatred for men, nor did it suffer due to her lack of privacy. And here she draws a comparison between Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte. She says that although Charlotte Bronte had more genius in her, yet her personal grievances affected her genius. Her hatred for men affected her genius. She also, draws a similarity between Shakespeare and Jane Austen, where she says that Austen's work did not reflect her grievance, did not reflect her anger. Like, she was a woman who was writing in the early 19th century without hatred, without bitterness, without fear, without protest. She did not protest through her writing. She did not, express her hatred for men. She did not even preach anything through her writing. And here she says that this is how Shakespeare wrote. So the only thing Jane Austen suffered from was a confined life. Jane Austen had a confined life, but the best part is that she did not long to have what she had not. Because during that time period, like, nobody could think of a woman going about alone, walking about the streets in London in an omnibus. So Jane Austen was also deprived of such experiences in her life, but still she was satisfied with whatever she had. She did not long for what she did not have, and this was her gift, which equally matched with her situation, with her circumstance, which led her to, come up with or to create good fiction.